Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today, we're going to talk about minority rule in politics in America. As you know, we live in a democracy where the system is 2/3 majority rules. 2/3 majority rules. So how did we get here? Because now today, we're in a state of play where minority rules. In a democracy where the majority rules, a 2/3 majority. So, for example, if you got a body of lawmakers and that body consists of 90 members and 60 members are voting one way and another 30 are voting the opposite way, then it's always going to be the way it's going to go the vote way of the 60. That is going to become law, whatever they say, whatever legislation they write. That is what's going to become law. So we're in a minority rule. Minority rule, which is where we're at today in American politics, happens when you don't vote. That's how minority rule comes about. Every voting block, every voting demographic, when they go to the polls in large numbers, then the majority will always rule. So if we're under minority rule now, let's start with the man in the mirror. Did you vote this last election cycle? Did you vote the last election cycle? This is how minority rules. Now, when 45 was in office, he had his 4 years, as I said, as every American president does. He has 4 years to make the case to give the American people a reason to go back after 4 years and give him another 4. That's the law of the land. Now, there's a large segment of the population, of the voting demographic, of the Negro voting demographic, let's be clear, that seems to have the prevailing thought that why bother? Because it doesn't matter anyway. They're going to do what they want to do. Well, if that was the case, Trump would still be in office. So you see, it was tried. There was an attempt to overthrow, to change, to subvert a free and fair election. There was an attempt. But the levels of democracy held. The system of checks and balances worked. So your vote did count. Let that be encouraging to you. Let that be encouraging. Let that be a sign. Let that be a direct authentication that your vote does count. That when you go to the ballot box in November and you select the candidate of your choice, if that candidate is voted for in large numbers, then nothing can change that. I think that after the death of the brother George Floyd, a lot of people who sat on the sidelines start to sit up and take notice and realize that if I don't get up and vote, then we're going to lose this. This thing is going to go off the rails. And when it goes off the rails, it's going to be hard to put it back on the rails. It may never go back on the rails again. So they got up and voted. We need a continuation of that. We need to let the sentiment be now, the prevailing thought be now that so there will never be another George Floyd again, we go and vote. And we go and vote in large numbers. It's been disproved now. Look at it for what it is. It's been disproved. Your vote does count. Republicans, powerful, bigoted lawmakers will try to change it. They will try to stop it, but there's nothing that they can do because of the system of checks and balances. It worked. The Capitol Hill Police was our last line of defense to make sure that it worked. So that's where we're at now. We're at a minority rule, and we need to come out of it. This is the state of play now. A tainted Supreme Court that's been pulled to the right, pulled to one side of the middle. Excuse me. A body that's not supposed to be politically leaning in either way. They're just there to be the final say on the laws that are already on the books. Whether a Democrat put them on the books or whether it was Republican legislation that put them on the books. So minority rule will not happen if you go out and vote. If you go out and vote. So we're going to take a small deep dive into what minority rule looks like today and the upheaval that it can cause. Now you had a president in office, 45, who on the national stage with Vladimir Putin, when it was time to stand up and be a leader of the free world, disregarded, was in denial, would not back up his own intelligence officials. He wanted the prevailing thought to be that it was some overweight 300-pound kid in his room who altered the course of the election. We know this was bogus. Now, here we are with sky-high inflation. Sky-high inflation. And a lot of it can be attributed to the invasion of Ukraine. So think about that. Here's minority ruling because we haven't got up and voted, and we haven't went out to the polls and voted. Now we're dealing with high prices at the pump, at the grocery store, on the electric bills. Your mortgages and your rents are going up. This is what minority rule looks like. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it for me to get up and go and vote in November, whether it be every 4 years, every 2 years? Look at what you're paying today for goods and services. And that should answer the question for you. Excuse me. But this is minority rule. We have a president who was in office and held hostage aid for a fledgling democracy in Ukraine that was trying to build itself up to be a strong and free nation. And he took the American aid that we set aside for Ukraine and used it as a bargaining chip. Now we have a war in Ukraine, a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Women and children dying. Men can take it. We're built for it. Women and children, not so much. But here's where we are because of minority rule. A war in Ukraine. Can you imagine if 45 would have stood up as a leader of the free world, like we all expected him to this dictator, Vladimir Putin? Had he stood up, it's quite possible that Putin would have thought twice, 3 times, if he'd heard 45's tough talk like he loves to do. If he'd have rattled the saber a little bit to say, we're going to stand behind Ukraine. We're going to fully support Ukraine. This is minority rule. Going along with a dictator. For the first time in history. Let it be recorded. We have these Russian Republicans who think that this invasion was somehow smart and savvy. He's not paying a price at the pump. The prices at the grocery store don't hurt him. How can he be stopped? How can we put it to a stop? VOTE. It's upon us. It's upon us. It's time. And if you don't, You'll get the same old minority rules, which happens when you don't go to the polls, when you don't vote. And that's how the system has been turned upside down to the point now where it's chaos everywhere, uncertainty. Think about it. Just one simple thing could have possibly deterred the invasion of Ukraine. And we wouldn't be in this high price situation where we're at today. At the gas pump, at the grocery store, etc., etc. If your vote did not count or it didn't matter, he would still be there. If your vote didn't count, if it didn't matter whether you vote or not, they're going to do what they want to do. You would have never had the first African-American president in American history. So let's touch and agree now, for those of us who are willing to do logical, sensible thinking. The vote does count. What's more powerful? A vote or marching in protest? Think about it. Which one are they trying to take away? Which one are they doggedly trying to rewrite, trying to gerrymander, change the districts, rewrite the laws? They're not rewriting laws when it comes to protesting. They're going to let you protest all day long. It doesn't matter how much your feet are sore, how much they're bleeding, how much sweat and tears. That does not matter. The vote is way more powerful than the protest. As a matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that if you go out and vote in large numbers, then there would be no need to protest because you will have your officials in Washington then. The people you put in office will have to go up to D.C. and Capitol Hill and do their job. And if not, as I said, you have to get involved. Whether you want to pick up the phone, whether you want to write a letter or whatever. We're constituents. That of the people, for the people. That's who we are. So, of course, it's not going to work if you don't sometimes light a fire under the elected officials to let them know that I'm watching. I see what you're doing. Excuse me. I see what I voted for versus what I'm actually getting now, and I'm not happy. They will begin to do their job because that's where the power is at, in writing legislation into law, in writing laws, getting the majority vote, and it becomes law. It becomes the law of the land. It's official. Think about it. Think about it long and hard. We're under minority rule now because of a lack of voting. What are they attacking? Not the right to protest. That's already law. They can't do nothing with it. The right to peaceably assemble for a redress of grievances. It's already in the law. It's the law of the land. The vote is what they're attacking. So that's where your power is at. And the minority wants to continue to rule. And that's why it's a need now to change the voting laws. Why didn't we change them before 45 even ran? When he was running against Hillary Clinton, talking about how dangerous her emails were, why didn't Republican officials in Congress or in the Senate, and they had both at the time, if I'm not mistaken, why did they not change the voting laws then? Now that 45 is lost, we sent him home as a one-term president. They're attacking the voting laws. So you have to think long and hard about it. Is there more power in the protest or is there more power in the vote? You decide. Which one changes things? You couldn't protest 45 out of office. You couldn't protest him out of office. But when you went to the ballot box in November, he had to go. He had to bow to the will of the people. And we all know what happened after that. The big lie. And then followed by an insurrection, an attempted coup on a free and fair election. If you like your grocery prices high, if you like your gas at $4.50 a gallon and climbing, then don't vote. But when you don't vote and you get these things, high prices at the pump, the grocery store, in the mail, and your bills, you can't complain about it. You can't cry about it. You've got what you voted for, or you got what you didn't vote for. But here's where we're at in Minority Rule, because we're not going to the polls in large numbers. Don't get me wrong, every ethnic group in America votes, or they should be voting. But when we as Negroes, when we go to the polls in large numbers, in most cases, we'll get a Democratic candidate in the Oval Office. As I said, we got Obama in. We put him in twice. We voted Trump out. So there you have it. There you have it. I rest my case. The vote is where your power lies at. And if you don't exercise it, you can't gripe. You can't complain. It's taking America in a downward spiral when the minority is ruling, because we're not getting involved in the process. This is the system we live in. You can't, as 45 tried, to shoot your way back in office, to violently seize the office of the presidency. You can't take it by guns. You can only get it by a vote. You can only get it by a vote. But this is where we are. High inflation, a tainted Supreme Court, a coronavirus pandemic that seriously set America back because of poor leadership, because of a president who declared war on it and then threw up the white flag without putting up a good fight. In Minority Rules, when a pandemic hits or strikes America again and you got Minority Rule, then it'll be the age of misinformation again. Think about it. This is what your lack of voting has caused. This is what your lack of voting has enabled Republicans in America to do. A pandemic has struck, and it was lethal. It was severe. Why do we need misinformation to go along hand in hand with something so deadly? But it wasn't fake news. It wasn't a Democratic virus or a Democrat pandemic. It was just simply a pandemic that knew no political affiliation, didn't care about no political party one way or another. And we have Minority Rule in power putting out misinformation. Going against a doctor, a lead doctor in America who's been on the front lines of major epidemics, pandemics, or whatever, all around the world, world renowned for his professionalism, his wisdom. He was on the front lines when AIDS first struck America. A lot has changed then, including his hair color, but he was on the front lines then. And he's diligently done his job up to the time War 45 tried to put restraints on him. This is what minority rule looks like. A serious pandemic going on in America that we can beat, that we can defeat in a timely manner. But we got a president in office who, instead of bringing us together to conquer this disease, he's dividing us. This is what minority rule looks like. And if you can change it by voting and you don't change it, then you get what you get. You get what you get. If you like misinformation, don't vote. If you like your gas prices at $4 or $5 a gallon, don't vote. There's a lot at stake, America. We're in the primary season now. It's time to get ready. Your local officials are there to help you with any information you may need, whether you're voting mail-in, absentee, military, early. There are several different ways to vote to alleviate the wait on election day, to fix it where you don't have to stand in line excuse me, for long periods of time just to cast a vote. And since we're going to be turning out in such large numbers, we have to exercise all of the above in order to not have to deal with the crowd swell on election day. And in order for the elderly not to have to be forced to stand in a line just to cast their vote. We got to vote. That is the solution to the problem. It's not hard. It's not something that we have to search for days and days, or some complicated algorithm that we have to put together to find out how this works or to make it work. You just simply look at the candidates, look at where they stand on the issues, whether you vote Democrat or Republican, and then simply cast your vote. Minority rule, minority rule. Is it pleasant or is it unpleasant? It's hitting you in your wallet. It's hitting you in your pocketbook, your bank account. It's affecting your sanity, your emotional state. The system works. Only when you exercise your right to vote does it work. Because after that, then we have minority rule, which is where we're at today. That is the state of play today, minority rule. Misinformation during COVID caused a lot of deaths, caused a lot of needless death and suffering. Because we had a president in office who only cared about doing whatever it took to get reelected, not being serious about stopping the virus. Now, before coronavirus, in this minority rule, it was often touted by this president, 45, oh, look at the stock market. Look at the money I made you today or this week. Oh, look at the numbers on the stock market. So when coronavirus hit, that was the alarm bells that went off in the president's head. Oh my God, this is going to crush the economy. This is going to crush my chances for being reelected. This is going to affect the pocketbooks of me and all my friends. What about the American people? And what's best for them? Could we put wealth aside in that moment, in that small moment, that small window, this 2 or 3 year window here, and get on top of this thing? No. That's what set his alarm bells off. Not that people were going to be dying in droves. Or is it going to be affecting families all across America, in red states, blue states, conservatives, liberals? It was going to be affecting everybody. This president could not wrap his mind around that. The only thing he saw that it was going to hurt the economy. It was going to hurt his political chances. And it was going to hit him in the pocketbook also. This is minority rule. Whatever it takes to get me elected, not whatever it takes to save the lives of as many Americans as I can. That wasn't on the agenda. That's what minority rule looks like. That's what happens when you don't vote. So the primaries are upon us. And then we're going into the generals in the fall. And if you don't vote, you get what you get. You can't complain. You can't whine and moan about it. Think about it, as I said, for the last time. Republicans are not making new laws or changing laws to stop you from protesting. That doesn't threaten their power. That doesn't affect the power structure in America. Let them keep marching. Just so long as they don't vote. This minority rule will continue America on a downward spiral. And we will go from a civil democracy to chaos, anarchy. Now, if we're headed there anyway, the best thing we can do to have history on our side, world history, because the world is watching. Because the world knows that American democracy is one of the best forms of government known to man. So the world is watching. And if you don't vote and make the case that there is no big lie, there is no ballot harvesting, there is no cheating, there's no dead people voting, then we're going to stay in this downward spiral. We're going to stay in this endless cycle of America being minority ruled in a Republican playbook full of spin, hypocrisy, propaganda, scare tactics. As I said, it's dumb of them to keep personal attacks going. It worked. The Willie Horton ads worked. And they haven't taken it out of the playbook since. But it's even dumber. It's even dumber. So here we are, Dumb and Dumber. Like the movie title. It's dumb of them to use these tactics. These scare tactics. But it's even dumber of the American electorate to continue to go for it. And you have went for it. You have went for it. Over and over and over. And so here we are. So here we are. Let's rock the vote like never before. In America, it's often said, and I've had no reason to doubt it since childhood to now, based on what I saw, that no one is above the law in America. Now, are we prepared to open up a Pandora's box when we're able to say, well, no one's above the law in America except for Donald John Trump? Are we prepared to open that Pandora's box? Let the rule of law prevail. Minority is ruling. We've had an opportunity to impeach this president for a second time so he can never run for office again, so he can never threaten democracy again. But because minority is ruling, or because minority ruled at the time, here we are. He's eligible when he shouldn't be. He's a disgrace to democracy. But yet, he can still run again. Why? How? This is a dangerous time in America, but it's no time to be fearful. It's time to be vigilant now. It's time to strap on your battle axe. and get ready to head to the ballot box in November. No one is above the law. This has prevailed. This has prevailed for years, hundreds of years. Now it remains to be seen who he's caught, because we had a president in office who broke the law, who flaunted the law, who thumbed his nose at the law. Let's see if the system of checks and balances will back Letitia James, the Attorney General in New York, who's trying her best to help us to see, or let us see, that in fact nobody is above the law. Right now, though, it remains to be seen. None of this inflation, this hit on the American economy, if one president in office would just do the right thing. We went into the Great Recession with the last Republican president. Now here we are again, with prices being run up in almost every spending category in America because of a Republican president. It's time we let the Republicans see the true will of the American people by going out to the ballot box. It's now or never. It's now or never. Now you can change the trajectory of the downward spiral. The power is in your hands because you are what? You are who? The people. The power in this government, in this form of democracy, the power is in the hands of the people. Don't be discouraged. The people voted, and you saw it. The people voted, and they had the power. Trump tried to take it. He sent his lynch mob up there based on the big lie, but it didn't work, and it'll never work. As long as we go to the polls as we should. It's not easy, but nothing gained is. There's no picking the rose without being pricked by the thorn. But a little tiny prick of that thorn is worth it if you can get your hands on that beautiful rose. And that's what our voting is like. Don't take it for granted. This is minority rule. This is what it does. This is what it looks like. Minority rule in a system where the majority rules. A 2/3 majority. So if you don't vote, then that's what happens. It's not hard. It's not complicated. When you don't vote, then the minority rules. Case in point. Had we went to the polls in the midterms, had we went to the ballot box in the midterms during the Obama administration, it's very well possible that we wouldn't be dealing with a tainted Supreme Court today. It's rare. I won't say it's unheard of, but it's very rare that a sitting president who's only been in office for 4 years can seat 3 Supreme Court justices on the bench in 4 years. This is not majority rule. This is what minority rule looks like. And this is what it's going to continue to look like. So now the court system with the final say. There's nowhere else to go after the Supreme Court. Once you take your case there, there's nowhere else to go. So because of minority rule, it's tainted. Think about it. 3 Supreme Court justices in 4 years? Don't too many presidents get that in 8. In a 2-term administration. in a two-term presidency. That's rare. It's almost unheard of. This is minority rule. You get what you get if you don't vote. That's the system we're in. Love it or hate it. Love it or hate it. If you hate it and don't vote, here we are. If you love it and you want to participate in it, then it makes life better for you. It makes life better for your children. So we're going to have to play our part in this republic. We're going to have to play our part in this republic. Or perish because of it. Or to have all the progress that the country has gained over the years set back. Now it's on us. It's on this generation. It's on the 20-somethings. Whoever, whatever age group is old enough to vote, it's on us. When the 20-something, the 30-somethings on us. It's on us to cast a vote. If not, it's not going to change. So there you have it. High inflation because of an invasion in Ukraine that the president never attempted to be a voice for. This is unheard of. This is real scary. We're in uncharted territory now. We're looking at the compass. I mean, there's a way out of it. When you look at the compass, it should be pointing towards a ballot box in November. That's the only way out of this uncharted territory. To have a president stand idly by and give Russia the encouragement. Give the president of Russia encouragement to invade a sovereign country. So here we are. Here we are. It's decision time. The primaries are upon us. The candidates, the nominees are being selected for the runoffs in November, whether it's Democrat versus Republican. It's upon us now. The senator from Ohio, Rob Portman, his seat is up for grabs. We need all Ohioans to go to the polls. To go to the polls for the Democratic candidate. And let's flip that seat. Then we'll be able to enjoy the fruits of a true, legitimate democracy. But if you don't vote, you get what you get. In the words of the great president, Barack Obama, don't boo, vote. Vote so you don't have to march. Vote so you don't have to deal with discrimination. Vote so you don't have to deal with pollution in the waters and the air that we breathe. Right now, minority rule is for deregulation. More and more pollution. More and more pollution. That's where it's at now. But it doesn't have to stay there. It doesn't have to remain in that position. But you can't be a couch potato. You can't sit on the sidelines. You can't be on top of the fence. We need to be in the mind state now that we will continue to vote now so that another Brother George Floyd will happen again. It'll never happen again. But if we sit on the sidelines, then it's gonna be for a certain where we're in a position where if it happens again, then we'll vote them out again. Why let it happen again? Just keep voting. Let the majority rule. If it's Republican, fine. But let it be a free and fair election. But right now, to the individuals the ethnic groups, the demographics who are not encouraged about voting, who are not enthusiastic about voting, you should be. Because when you leave this country, by the way, which if you're not a naturalized citizen here, born here, not have not immigrated here already, everybody wants to be here or to get here as fast as they can. But if we don't vote, then it's all going to be wasted away. Where can you go? What other country can you run to and be under an even greater government where you have freedom, where you have protections, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to peaceably assemble? Beware of minority rule, because it won't respect cries. It won't respect pleas. It won't respect that. The right to peaceably assemble is possible. It could be over forever. The former defense secretary, he's making his rounds now. He's wrote a book. He's making his rounds. Trump wants to know if he can have an order where protesters during the George Floyd protest can be shot. If we just shoot him in the ankle, shoot him in the knee. Now you imagine if the president was to preach that and support that when it comes to cops pulling Negro males over in America. Why don't he support that then? Oh, you fearing for your life? Shoot him in the leg. Shoot him in the knee. Why won't he support that? And this probably never would have happened in the first place. But that's where we're at with minority rule. We have a president in office who's talked to the former defense secretary, Esper, about wanting to get information as to know if he could shoot these protesters. It's stranger than fiction, I know, but it's real. It's real. It's stranger than fiction, but it's real. This is minority rule. And this is the way it's going to stay unless we exercise our right. You don't have this right in any other country. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some fledgling democracies out there, none that come to mind. But in this land, in this country, is where people all around the world want to be. And the people are not here are constantly wishing and hoping or wondering why their government can't be as good, as great, or as balanced as the United States of American government. So don't take it for granted that it's always going to be like it was from the beginning when the framers framed it up to this new age and time of minority rule. It's only going to remain the same with the same checks and balances, respect for the rule of law, working across the aisles, compromise. It's all gone if you remain sitting on the sideline. So think about it. In closing, once again, this is what minority rule looks like. This is how we come to a day and time of minority rule. Now, everyone who chooses not to vote in November, that's a vote for the other side. And vice versa for the Republicans. If the Republicans choose not to vote, then that's a vote for us. We'll take that. And I'm sure they're feeling the same way. If we can discourage these Negroes or any other ethnic group that votes Democratic from voting, hey, we'll take that. If we can use intimidation, threats of violence, we'll take that. But what does it do for the greater good of humankind? When the way it's framed, when the way it's designed, when the way it's written is not carried out by the American public. You have minority rule. I firmly believe that when we all go to the ballot box in November in large numbers, that this country is slightly left of center. And you have to understand that to ask yourself the question, if it's not slightly left of center, why are lawmakers in the Senate and on Capitol Hill trying so hard to change the voting laws, to rewrite them? Why are they working so hard to do this? Because they know. They're afraid that they can't make the case to a change in demographic. So this is what they're going to try to do to continue to have minority rule. And the only thing that will stop it is the will of the people. And that is the will to vote. Minority rule. Think long and hard about it. Sleep on it. Here we are. Invasions that are going on in the world that more likely wouldn't be going on. High prices at our back door now, at our front door, as a result. It's not a big deal. It's not complicated. We're in this situation largely because the previous administration and the previous president wouldn't stand up to Russia. This is what minority rule looks like. Don't believe the hype. If you don't cast a ballot, nothing changes. If you don't cast a ballot, nothing changes. And we're stuck in this for the unforeseeable future. We want the Supreme Court to be a respected institution, a respected body. But the only way to set it straight, to make it right again, is VOTE. Vote, vote, vote. That's the only way. On the Republican side, they tried guns. They tried smashing windows to get in to stop a free and fair election. They tried lies. They tried bribes. And they're not going to give up. So neither can you. Neither can you give up on what is the lesser of two evils in America, in my opinion, is the Democratic Party, the party of the working class. If I was a millionaire, billionaire, as you were, when I become a millionaire, a billionaire, I would still think it's right to be taxed a little bit. I don't want to die a rich man. Let me try to do the world some good. If I'm sitting on millions and billions, when it's my time to leave here, let me do the world some good after I've taken care of my family. We're in minority rule now, but there is a way out. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So don't give up. Don't despair. Now, if you don't vote, you get what you get, and you have to take what you get. You can't complain. It's needless to protest because the people are in office now and they're study writing laws. They're study writing laws. This is minority rule, and it's not good for America. It's not good for America because it's not the will of the American people. If it's minority rule, America's only going to stay a functioning, burgeoning democracy if it continues to be majority rule. So think about it long and hard. Either you use it in terms of your vote, either you use it or when it comes to the country and the peace that you enjoy, the freedom that you enjoy, you lose it. So you either use your vote or you lose all this. That's where it's at. Plain and simple. Voting is more powerful than protesting. Remember that. Voting is more powerful than protesting. And as a matter of fact, if we go and vote in large numbers, then there's no need to protest. Do the things that gives you the power. Do the thing that will take possibly protesting off the table for you. And that's voting. Excuse me. So there you have it. Invasions of sovereign countries resulting in sky-high prices all over the place. Tainted Supreme Court. Major misinformation in the age of coronavirus. Major misinformation. That's cost the lives of thousands of Americans. Simply because we had a president in office who couldn't be truthful, who wouldn't be truthful with the American people. This is not doom and gloom. This is not something that we're stuck with or that is destined to be. This is only the here and now. Minority rule. It's only the here and now because you're not voting. It's simple. It's simple. And it always will be in the system. It'll always be in the system. Simple. Vote. And you vote in the power structure that you want in. You vote in your will. Don't vote, then you get what you get. You get what you get. Now, on the Democratic side, we're ready to live with it. We're prepared to live with it. We go out and vote in huge numbers, or we get the people up to vote that we can get up and encourage to get to the polls. If we lose, we lose. We come back harder. We have to make the case better. We have to be more convincing. We have to get back on the campaign trail again. Not reaching for our guns. Promoting a lie. This is dangerous for democracy. Nobody likes to lose. If you can show me a good-spirited loser, then I'll show you a loser. Nobody likes to lose. But it's a part of life. You don't win it all. Now, if this president gets on the ballot again for 2024, it'll be our job to make him a two-time loser. It'll be our job to make him a two-time loser. To prevent things from happening. Instead of reacting to them after the fact, after they have already happened. To prevent it from happening. To prevent it from happening. You have to vote. So in closing, that's where we're at. Minority rules right now. Minority rules. And you have what you have. The country in turmoil, political turmoil, tainted Supreme Court, high prices, simply because one man wouldn't stand up to another man. This is an all-time low for the Republican Party. If you don't want American democracy wallowing in the mire with them, you have to pull it up out of the mud by voting. It doesn't have to be minority rule. But if we don't vote, then that's what it will be. Can we turn it around? Ask yourself, what do I have to do that's so important come election time that is so important that I'm going to miss the opportunity to vote? Your vote grants you the great livelihood that you have, job opportunity, freedom to vacation, to have money to take your family out, whether it be to the movies, whether it be on a simple picnic. All this comes about from voting. You can vote in something good, or you can not vote, and then you'll have something in that's bad. And that's what's happened. So think about it. Long and hard. The primaries are upon us. We have to get ready. Study up on your candidates. See what positions they stand for. And cast a ballot. Cast a ballot. Cast a ballot for change. Cast a ballot for a greater America. Cast a ballot for a brighter future with clean air, clean drinking water. We can make democracy better by voting versus not voting. So the decision is yours. Think long and hard about it. Until we meet again, this is Soluble, America's Political Central. Join us on Friday where it will be issue day. And the topic, the issue for this coming Friday will be, we will address Black Lives Matter. How it matters, why it shouldn't matter, the negatives, the positive, the whole nine of Black Lives Matter. So until Friday, this is Soluble signing off. You say stay blessed, stay strong, stay vigilant, and be ready in November to rock the vote, to make America that more perfect union as it is written by the framers. Thank you and good night.